today, October 24th. On Thursday, we have our roll call. Ms. Adams, invocation by Pastor Greg Rolls of God is Good Church, Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Johnson. And then we'll proceed to our presentations and awards. In this week, we have proclamation declaring October 29th through November 4th as Veteran Business Week. I know Mr. Boone's not here, but Diana will be covering that. Thank you, ma'am. Economic Development Commission Award to Doc Swardinghold. That will be done by Mr. Wallace Ricks. And City Manager report, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. The RFP for the feasibility study for the strategic plan item of the council regarding the municipal court, those proposals are due on November 15th. The commercial pool resurfacing at the Cove has been awarded to Superior Pool, and that work will start in mid-November and take 6 to 8 weeks to complete. And then the Animal Control Center Improvement and Expansion Project, we're looking at construction now to start in March. So that's the first time I have a date of potential construction start. So that's what I have right now. I'm sure I'll have more on Thursday, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Then we'll proceed to new business with discussion of possible action of Resolution 2023-079 of the authorization to accept Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety Grant funding and staff report. Chief Heiser, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. For the last 20 years, we've been, actually over 20 years, I should say, we've been involved in the Southeastern Arizona DUI Task Force. That task force are primarily overtime deployments where we focus solely on impaired driving all over the county. The funding source for that overtime for many years now and been a recurring grant agreement is a overtime grant through the Governor's Office of Highway Safety. So this particular grant agreement is for overtime reimbursement for our officers to participate in these concentrated details that are focused on impaired driving. The grant amount is $20,900, but that also includes a employee-related expense reimbursement amount of $8,354 for a total grant amount of $29,254. That employee-related expense amount is important in that it covers the public safety personnel retirement costs as well. So we get reimbursed on that as well, and that's always something we look for and ensure when we have these overtime reimbursements. So that's factored in as well. We plan to use every minute of this, every dollar of this grant fund for deployments throughout the year. Primarily, they're on the holiday weekends and other times when we see a lot of people on the roadway, and there's possibly some impaired driving. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you for keeping our safe streets, streets safe. Any questions, comments for Chief Heiser? All right, thank you, sir. We'll move to approval of 2023-2026 Title VI of the Non-Discrimination Plan for the City of Sierra Vista. Staff report, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of council. This plan that is before you tonight is an updated version of a plan that was last approved by council a little over 3 years ago. It's a 3-year cycle that we are required to update and have this plan put in place by the council. It is required by the Federal Transportation Administration and the Department of Transportation and is directly tied to the grants and the funding that we receive for the transit system. And it is put in place to make sure that as an entity we do not discriminate against any of our customers, citizens, employees, anybody on primarily for race, color, or national origin, but it also has been expanded over the years to include income status, sexual orientation, disability, age, and many other things. The plan was not significantly altered from the last version. We did find when we were doing our research in the metrics that our numbers of limited English proficiency households has risen above a 5% threshold, which means that we will be in the future translating vital documents such as ride guides and paratransit applications and information that's important to our transit riders into Spanish, as well as re-implementing a language line for other languages where they need an oral translation or even possibly a face-to-face on a phone translation. So that is the biggest change. This doesn't affect any and doesn't take into consideration any of the fare programs that we're running or anything. This is basically just civil rights, and that's what this is set to address.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Any questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I just had one. I don't know if it's. I tried to understand what this meant on page 9. It says the vehicle load for each mode. I just didn't know what that meant. So I was going to hopefully get an explanation where it says the Vista Transit load standard maximum load factor of 1 for off-peak, and then peak is 1.20. I'm not sure what that formula, what that's supposed to mean.
That is information I got from the transit employees. I will get clarification and let you know Thursday night.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Appreciate it. That's the only question I have. I'm glad that obviously it's being looked at again, and I mean the plan as it is now looks like a phone number you can call if need be. So it's one step, I guess, or there's somewhat of a plan in case they need it.
Thank you. And we'll move to item number 5, Resolution 2023-081, intergovernmental agreement with Whetstone Fire District for fueling services. Mr. Gay, good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So the city owns a fueling station located at Public Works facility. And in addition to providing fuel for the city vehicles and other equipment, it's also used to sell fuel to other government agencies. So the Whetstone Fire District has requested that they be able to purchase fuel from the city. And so the resolution you have before you is to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Whetstone Fire District for fueling services. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
What's the city's take when they fuel up per
The-
gallon?
Mr. Mayor, Council Member Johnson, what's the markup? Is
Right.
It's 5 cents above and beyond what the city pays per
Okay.
gallon.
All right,
Yep,
that answers my question. Thank you.
Other questions?
thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. And those are the 3 items for Thursday. We'll have calls to the public as well as comments from the council and adjournment. Our second item for tonight is virtual presentation about community choice aggregation or electric co-ops for Arizona urban areas by Arizonians for community choice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, hello, Mayor McCaw and council members. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. So we know we won't take a lot of your time, but at the suggestion of Mayor McCaw, we're here today. This is probably a little bit of a departure from the typical agenda item, but so Arizona's for Community Choice is a statewide organization. I am the state director, Shelley Borden, and then Scott Hancock is on the call. There's a big storm in Tucson, apparently, and so his internet connection is a little bit unstable, so he's joining us. He is our project manager. So we had a brief conversation with Mayor McCaw about co-ops and then this model called Community Choice Energy. They are not competing models. We're not looking to actually convert Sierra Vista to this model. But basically, we feel that cities, or suburban and urban areas should have a similar option where you have a co-op run by a board that you elect that fixes the power, that powers your city. And for cities like Tucson or Phoenix or other cities within in the larger counties, they don't have a similar choice. So if they live, if you live in TEP territory or you live in APS territory, then you are automatically that customer. And so we want to bring a model to Arizona which would allow these cities to have similar options. So this is just a little bit of a history of the grid. This is a model, this monopoly model that Arizona is is, that is the state structure here, except for co-ops or municipal power. But basically, it's where the utility owns all of the structure, all of the bundle is how it's referred. So, they own the generation and then the poles and wires that deliver the power. And so it's a model that's been around. It was important when it started almost 150 years ago. You wanted to centralize all of that so you could get power to every household and business. But with, times have changed. I mean, now we have people with rooftop solar. So, power is coming from different sources. And it's not just now the utility owns all of the power and is delivering it, but, residents are buying power by investing in rooftop solar and there's wind energy, there's all kinds of different energy. It's not just gas, which is what we've mostly been using in Arizona. So, CCA falls under this category of kind of a variation of a co-op, but again, it would be for cities and counties. It is not competitive. So here's basically how community choice energy works. A city or county, I'm talking again about, like a city like Tucson or Phoenix or up in the Phoenix area, Chandler, Tempe, cities that are not powered by a co-op but they're in serves a utility service territory. They would be allowed to buy power on the wholesale market, and then the utility would continue to deliver that power. So it's a sort of interesting hybrid arrangement where the city is just taking over the generation portion of what the utility does, but the utility is still doing everything else. So it's not a municipal power, it's not a co-op, it's just the generation piece of what the utility does. But any energy that these CCE purchases goes back to the grid, and then it goes where it's needed. And then the customer is automatically enrolled. So in a way, it functions like a utility, where the customer is automatically in, except the difference is that they can opt out and stay with the utility if they so choose. So again, the CCE allows a city or county or group of cities to buy power on behalf of residents and businesses, and then the utility in that area continues to deliver the power, and then the customer is automatically opted in. They get a choice of different plans depending on how much, what they want in their energy mix, whether they want more green power, more brown power. And for cities like Tucson, like Phoenix, that have climate action plans that are trying to figure out how to reduce their own carbon emissions, this is one solution that's been proven across the country. So just to review, the benefits of community choice energy is that it lowers rates for ratepayers, it increases energy choice and localizes it. CCEs actually make money, but all of that money goes back into the community to fund energy programs, and it increases renewable energy if that's something that the city or county is interested in. This is a model that is authorized in 10 states. You'll see that the 3 Southwest states, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. We are working on bringing this model to our state. And again, it would only be for more, heavily populated areas, larger cities that would be interested in this. So we actually have legislation that's going to be reintroduced this year. And so the reason we're talking to you today is because, again, out of the conversation with Mayor McCaw, we felt that, for cities like Sierra Vista, like Wilcox, and most of the counties, rural counties in Arizona are powered by co-ops or smaller utilities, or they're their own municipal power like Page and Williams and, some of the other cities, Wickenburg. But for large urban areas, they don't have any other options. If they want to spend the money to form a municipal power, they can do that, but it takes 10 years and almost $1 billion. So CCE is a much less expensive and quicker way for a city to transition. And so this slide basically just shows you a couple of cities have already, supported this idea. We are working, as I said, at the state level to bring legislation to Arizona. So, I don't need to go through all of these, but we're working on different fronts, with different energy stakeholder groups, including the legislature, including the Corporation Commission, Thank you, I got my time here. Grassroots groups, and then we're meeting with city officials, people like yourselves, the city council, elected officials, people that are in sustainability staff or environmental staffers, and just briefing them on this model. And then we do workshops every 2 months where we bring in experts from other states to talk about how this would actually work in their cities. So we have about 8 cities right now that are supportive of this model. They're interested in it. They're working on their climate action plans. I mentioned Tucson, Flagstaff, Sedona, Phoenix, Tempe, Scott, who am I missing? We've briefed a bunch.
Buckeye.
So these are up north. Cottonwood is another one. So all over the state, and we're going to continue to go, and we're talking to counties as well. So we just started doing that. So, as I mentioned, we have 2 CCE feasibility study bills in both the House and the Senate. We actually are meeting with Republicans and Democratic legislators. Both see the value of it for different reasons, and we think this has the potential to be a bipartisan, a bill that has bipartisan support. And so what we're hoping is that the city, you as the council members and mayor would say, would be willing to say that it's, you think it's worth studying this model, you're happy with the co-op model, you think it's fair, only fair that larger cities should have some kind of similar option as the co-op model. So that's kind of why we're here today, is to say, is this something that you could say, yes, we think it's worth studying? We're not asking you for blood or to sign anything. I mean, that's up to you if you want to pass the resolution. But just to be clear, this would not compete with co-ops. This would not affect reliability of the grid. All of that, nothing changes for you. It's merely, we as a rural community think it's fair that, urban and suburban areas should have this option. So I can stop there and take any questions you have. And that's about it.
Thank you, Shelley. Any questions, comments? Sir? Oh, I thought you had your hand. No. No questions?
Does this make sense, what we presented to you? Is it?
I have to do some more reading, and also just some more educate myself on this.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds, it sounds a lot like what the co-op's already doing for us.
Right.
As a community.
Right.
And I didn't hear about how the energy savings for the customers would be, because that's kind of, we're not in the energy business as a municipality, right? We don't have any energy companies, things like that. So obviously that would be the most important part, is the citizens of our city, is how would it affect them? How would it benefit them? And are they stuck or not? I've seen other cities where they voted it in and then they were stuck for a year before they can go back to if they wanted to change their mind. So obviously things like that would be important to our citizens, I believe.
Yeah, so just to clarify, nothing would change for Sierra Vista because the CCE is for large urban areas. Again, we're just asking, we're talking to cities like Sierra Vista that are powered by co-ops to say that we think it's fair that cities should have a similar option, similar option to that kind of a model. They don't have that today. So, it's not something that we're saying we hope Sierra Vista adopts this model, because we don't think you should change what's, it's not broken, and, so you shouldn't have to fix it. But we're saying that should Tucson have a similar option if they wanted it? That's kind of how we're thinking about it.
And then I think, just to add a little bit too,
Yeah.
some of the benefits for the other larger urban cities too, or other smaller cities that might adopt this as well, or just to repeat too, it'll lower rates, it'll create a cheaper energy landscape for across the board for Arizonans. And one of the more important things, one of the reasons why I believe in this, is it creates water savings for everyone when different energy sources are used. So that's another big point of this as well, is that there's just going to be water savings across Arizona once we do start the transition.
Okay. Well, thank you, Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day. So we go to item number Charlie, fiscal year 2024-25 strategic plan implementation plan. Ms. Yarborough.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm pleased to present to you today the implementation plan for your fiscal year 24-25 strategic plan. My apologies, it's a little later than I would have normally liked to get it to you, but what this plan is, or what I'm presenting you today is this is how staff is going to go about executing or achieving the various priorities and initiatives that you have set as council. So a lot of these are carryovers from the previous plan, and so I'm not going to go back over them because you just heard an update at the last meeting on how those finished up or are carrying on. So please expect that those will continue on in pretty much the same fashion as they were going or already had. And I'll go over a couple of the highlights on some of the newer issues or the newer priorities and initiatives. And since this is, as always, your plan, any feedback or direction, if you would like to see implementation go in a different direction, then please let us know. But the highlights I wanted to cover today, starting on page 4 with priority 6, one of the things you'll see, a few items here in the new plan are some teams that have been created or some very broad goals that we're going to drill down with the departments through a multi-phase plan. And so priority 6 is one of those, on inventorying and evaluating city processes by department or division. So first we need to take a good look and evaluate, what are the issues, work with our departments and divisions to identify those, and then assess what issues need to be addressed and prioritize those issues. And some parts of that might happen a little faster when we talk about what we want to implement or change or improve. But that approach will be used in a couple of these different priorities, and I'll mention those in just a second. Going on to priority 12.1, that's on page 9. That's your special event policy, which you're going to be discussing as the next item. So that one is up for discussion already. Page 10, initiative 14.1. That is evaluating or studying the implementation of a municipal court. So right now we have an RFP that is currently out for a consultant to conduct a feasibility study on a municipal court. So that is proceeding as we speak, and as those results come back, they'll of course be shared with council for discussion and direction on that. Page 11, initiative 14.4, and then 14.2 and 0.5. So 14.4 is feasibility study for a regional convention center. We're going to move that one to the next budget year. We didn't budget for either the feasibility study on the municipal court or the convention center. So staff will do research on what the cost would be and get the RFP out next spring, so we can include that one in next budget year and explore that. 14.2 and 14.5, lots of evaluation in this one. Visitor center, museum, OICC replacement options. So staff will be working through all of those items. Priority 15, which is on page 12, that one is maintaining properly staffed city departments, which is something that we are always working on continually, but we'll be forming a staff recruitment and retention team that will meet on a regular basis to discuss some of the various things that are needed and suggested. We'll make recommendations to our city manager for implementation. Priority 16, which is continually improving the current levels of service and program services and amenities. The approach to that is pretty similar to priority 6. So number 1, again, that one's a pretty broad one. We have to identify what are all of our services, programs, and amenities, and then start drilling down into what needs assessment, what needs improvement, what are the roadblocks, and so on, and then prioritizing our list for what needs to be addressed and implemented. And finally, priority 21, that's on page 14. That's simplifying digital access to city processes and information. Something, again, we've been working on an ongoing basis. Our CIO began a technology team earlier in the year, so that team is going to continue to focus on project updates, IT training, review and evaluation of solutions, future IT needs. Earlier in the year, we already took some steps to look at some website functionality issues earlier in the year and made some updates and corrections. So we'll continue doing that over the next 2 years and beyond also. Those are the highlights of your plan. I'm happy to answer any questions, and staff are here to answer any further questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions, comments on the implementation plan? Not right now, okay. Still going through it. Yeah. Any? All right, thank you so much, and we'll go to item number Bravo, discussion on special event co-sponsorship fee reduction program. Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So a couple of work sessions ago, I gave a presentation on what I was working on for the draft for this special event co-sponsorship and fee reduction program. And at that time, I think you guys probably hadn't had a lot of time to review it. And then unfortunately, I was ill at the last meeting, and I understand there was a need for some more discussion and clarification. And so this is on your agenda tonight so that council can continue that discussion, and we're here to take your feedback or questions so that we can get you guys what you were looking for.
Thank you, ma'am. We do have one, Mr. Joe Kratz. He had asked that if he could speak on this issue as one
I
prior.
would like to do that after your discussion because you may answer some of my questions. So it might be easier if I do that, if I do it later rather than sooner,
No problem.
if that's not a problem.
So one of the questions was, go back to the plan, I think it was, item
Number 4, I think, on page 2.
is on page 2. Qualification requirements for those seeking fee waivers or co-sponsorship.
Yeah.
I think we looked at, number 4, was it?
Yeah, number 4, I think, was the,
Yeah, the
One
one in
that-
question. Alpha is free, Bravo is demonstrates significant value to the community. Charlie was assist with tourism, sports tourism, economic development, recreational, and strategic plan goals. And I think the one that we really had a problem with was the number Delta not having a religious or political purpose. And that came from Councilwoman Messmer. Councilwoman, you want to comment on that one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So my question is, and I'll just put this in my terms, and hopefully if you guys need clarification. So I'm a Roman Catholic, I'm a Hispanic, and for me and my family and multiple others, it's the same. You can't separate me from one to the other. And so when I ask or when we do a cultural event, it's mainly brought through by the church. When we go out and do that, we're not evangelizing, we're not asking anybody to convert, we're just bringing this event, this culture to you so you can learn, more about the Hispanic culture. And so, and specifically is brought up was the La Posada, which is, it is a very religious thing. It's the journey of that Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem for Jesus to be born. And it's just a simple little culture thing. We just go to 3 different spots. We sing songs in Spanish and English, and then at the end, where we finally get accepted, we have a little party with just this hot cinnamon, hot chocolate, and cookies. That's it. And to me, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but when it says no religious, I don't understand. So that's just for me, and it's not just the Hispanic culture that practices this. Spaniards do it, and also the Filipinos do it, and I do know that here in Sierra Vista, other churches do it, but they are not bringing it, to the whole city, which St. Andrews did last year, and would like to continue when we did this little posada on the west end. So that's my, I'm sure there's other churches that would like to bring something, there, but, and again, they're not trying to, convert or evangelize anybody. They're just bringing this little bit of culture as a city event. And most of the time, we're asking just for advertisement from the city, not, giving any money or asking for the street to be shut down because the sidewalks are plenty large, especially on the west end to do that. So that was just for me, that was my big thing. And I don't know if anybody else has any other issues with that. But.
Just because you're looking right at me.
Oh, sorry.
Because I did have it. I just felt like it wasn't consistent with what we're already co-sponsoring, since it's not a holiday parade, it's a Christmas parade, so there is a religious tie to it, which I never had any problem with. But if we're gonna say we can't do one thing, we have to be consistent, right?
Yeah.
So that was my concern.
Well, if I can just interject, I think if we look at the third paragraph on page 2, probably the very last sentence, it says, religious organizations, companies, or groups may obtain fee waivers or co-sponsorships if the proposed program, event, or project neither promotes religious messages nor advocates for or promotes religious beliefs. And I think, doesn't that follow in with your thinking?
It sounds like it does.
Councilperson Mesmer?
Sounds like it does.
Yeah,
I
it
think-
does it, because I know that, when if we would apply, we could easily fill all the things and it wouldn't, but, just that one sentence at the end, I wasn't sure, what, if it meant,
Well, I think.
Because it says no religious.
right, yeah, so.
Right, I think D has to be modified to not just be not have a religious or political purpose. Because I think it's already explained in the policy in that third paragraph.
Should just say, see paragraph 1 above.
Yeah.
Cover it.
Sounds good.
Ms.
Thank you.
Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Mesmer, and Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey. I did watch the meeting back, and I did hear your question, and I think it's a fair question, and I did go back and do some research. There's a lot of Supreme Court cases that follow along. Christmas is a federal holiday. It's considered pretty much secular. You have the elves and the reindeer and the Santa Claus, and even Christmas trees are okay. What really comes into play, and I wish Nathan was here and he might be able to give us some more legal information, but we do have a lawyer sitting next to me as well. So it basically states that government agencies can even have spaces where there are religious items, like in a town square, but it would have to be like placed by a member of the community and open to all communities. So if you had, a menorah or something like that, then it would also need to be allowed to have, a Christian symbol or Kwanzaa or other things. We currently do not do that in our city park. We have a Christmas tree, but it is very secular. There's nothing in there with a religious connotation. Our Santa Claus is in the park. And the term Christmas for a Christmas holiday is also secular for some people. Some people, it has a deep personal meaning, and that's okay for a person to have a personal meaning with the word Christmas. I have a personal meaning with that word that may be different from someone else. And so the third-party event that the chamber hosts that they call a Christmas parade, it is not for a religious purpose. They will allow entries for all religions to be explored within there. Like it's open to everybody. So I don't think legally there's a First Amendment issue with that whatsoever. According to my research, definitely not. But Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I know that that was something that has been a partnership between the city and the chamber, which has been kind of tightened up over time to make sure that there was an equal benefit with the expansion of our two-day holiday market and Christmas tree lighting event, or tree lighting event, excuse me. I got Christmas on the brain now. But we do those things in tandem so that it's a bigger and better experience for our community and the region. Now with the ice rink there, people are kind of coming in from all over. So I think for that, it's not like a direct, I don't see that there's an issue with that. But again, I'm not a lawyer.
So then the La Posada being open to the community, and I know there were people that weren't Catholic participating last year. They had other religions that, and I know they go to other churches, but they were there. And so would that fit under what, yeah,
Thank you.
since
It-
they're
it
not
may,
excluding?
But I would also say that it was very specifically written in here that there must be a large community benefit for these things. That is also in this draft. So that would all have to be written, like, is there a draw? Is there a regional draw? What is the city government's benefit to using city resources and taxpayer dollars to promote this service event? Because a lot of great events will fit the bill for this. It's basically a question is, is this what you want your city marketing department to be doing for everyone?
So we,
That
I don't
meets
remember.
this criteria.
I'm sorry.
If we're talking specifically about marketing in that case, but there could be other things like fee waivers for like the use of the parks, things like that.
Yes.
Thank you. Just a follow, because I haven't read this in a couple of weeks. So where was it that it had to bring a large benefit? I can't remember.
Page 1 under program requirements.
Thank you.
May be considered for a waiver reduction or co-sponsor endorsement by the city when determines that the program or event is of significant value to the community or to a large portion of its residents and is within the scopes of services normally provided by the city.
So, I'm just trying to. So if it's objective and like, what if a significant value? Like,
How do we gauge
I could
that?
think that it's a significant value, but maybe, I don't.
It's not something that it would be saving like a budget item for that you would be asking the city to perform. If that weren't happening, is that something we would be doing? Is that what the city would be doing?
Well,
I think it's hard.
That's all right.
My comment was, I understand that verbiage, but how do we truly gauge that? I think is what you're trying to say. How do we gauge that? Like to say, yours supports
Benefit.
community benefit, but yours doesn't. I mean,
yeah.
data is data, and you can be skewed a million ways to support all of my causes. But
Rather subjective.
We just
Yes.
we were just told we had to reinitiate the line for, Espanol, and I feel like that's becoming more significant that we have these cultural, I don't know, it's,
so with the
Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey, I would just like to also say this doesn't mean that we're not pro these events. These events can all happen. Like, nobody's taking away, like, there's nothing that's gonna prevent the La Posada happening or me eating those delicious cookies. That's something that I think is very interesting. This was, basically, I wrote it as a place of a government agency. This is intentionally not easy to get. This is not a business that we're in, and this is intentionally geared to where we're solving the direction that we're being set, like within our strategic plan, things that we want to see more of as the city providing in the community, regional draws, things that would bring in tax dollars to our community, and things like that. I think the other way is something, that would take a much broader discussion.
Sir.
I mean, just so I mean, if your organization X is interested in doing this and they want to waiver, right? And they feel like, well, they do a presentation that says, here our event's gonna do all these things, right? This is how it's gonna support that. We're gonna check all these blocks. Here's our presentation of how this is gonna happen in our eyes, right? Or whatever organization that wants to do an event is that what's looked at and okay, yes, this checks the block or no, and then it goes back, what's the process for that? Because we have these guidelines, but who is not the gatekeeper, but who is the person that says, yes, this is
Approval authority.
Director of Arts.
right? And so like if they don't, what's required, it sounds like, is it a presentation? Is it a, what kind of facts can you provide to say, here's, again, because it can be very subjective depending on who you are.
Especially if it's a new program or something, like that was the first year. So it should grow and turn out as a program continues. So I don't know.
I mean, it would require some research obviously on those particular groups that want to do something. It wouldn't be hard to do, but I think if they present it and then after that, it's decided on by the director to say, okay, yes, it doesn't, or no, it doesn't. I don't know how we would what's the process?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Sir?
well, recently, weren't we approached by a group that utilizes the Cove for swimming?
Yes.
And they said that their fees had gone up significantly. Does that fit within what we're looking at here? I mean, it's not a Cove sponsorship event of anything, but it's a fee that they're evidently paying. I see Chuck has got the answer for me.
Oh, yes, sir.
I don't know if I have the answer, but, what we do now is infinitely fair. We charge rentals or lease space, and the reason we do that is because if a group leases space, then the rest of the community can't use that space while they're there, and that's a fair way of doing it. If you want to use a park or the portion of a park, you pay for that to the exclusion of others using it at that point in time. Same goes with our other facilities like the Cove or tennis court or whatever. You reserve time, you pay for that time, then you get it, and somebody else has to do that. What we're really talking about here, though, is you have certain events that you decide to subsidize either with staff time, marketing, whatever the case is. So you have 4th of July, and that's in partnership, with the Rotary Club, or you have Oktoberfest, or you have the Christmas celebration. Those are all things we're aware of during the year that we budget for because we know they're community-wide events. Veterans Day is another one, and that we're going to put staff and city resources and public dollars towards to do. Now, the council, in listening to strategic plan discussions and all that, would like to see the city engaged in more events because, obviously there's a benefit to bringing people in town and those kind of things. So we're talking about how do we be fair then? Or how do we, put these resources to use? Are we going to need to budget more if the council identifies other community-wide events that we need to do? Do we need to hire more staff? All those kind of things. So I guess what I'm saying is you could choose to do nothing, and you have a fair system in place basically right now with our fees and adjusting them for the cost. What we're really talking about is level of public support and public dollars going to support other types of events besides the ones you already subsidize. That's really what I think we're talking about here.
All right. Mr. Krabs?
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Joe Krabs, and as a sidebar, I've been a resident of Sierra Vista since 1979. I've served at a seat on that dais as a councilman, been on P&Z, and done a lot of things in the community. Good discussion today, because what this document does is raise a whole lot more questions than there ever will be answers. So I'm going to go through a couple of them real quick, just so you'll know. This is me as a private citizen looking from the outside in. You're a government trying to look over at me at the outside as being the private citizen or entity trying to do something. So in the very beginning it says on page 1, It talks about economic benefits, boosting local businesses and generating revenues through increased tourism and local spending. On page 2, activities specifically prohibited, enhance private business. Wait a minute. What did we just do? We got an oxymoron here. What about somebody that wanted to do a trade show that would enhance private business? What if they wanted to do a job fair? What about the farmer's market? Think about that. I'm going to go quickly. You guys we can discuss this later if you like, but let me just go to a couple of things here. On page 2, qualifications number 4A, you talked about D in depth, but let's talk about A. It says free. I love that word. Including registration, entry, and participation fees. Okay. Go over here to the last page, page 4, where it talks about the things that the city's already involved in. Thunderbolt Youth Triathlon. I'll bet you there's a fee to participate in that triathlon. It just says you can't have a participation fee. I'm not sure about the vineyards in the park for the Huachuca Art Association. I'm thinking that's a wine thing that we just did this year. I know there's a fee, but I think that buys wine, so maybe that's a little different. Halloween at the Veterans Memorial Park. I think you ask all the local businesses and people that participate to pay a fee to be there. The Christmas parade, I guarantee there's a fee that they have to pay to participate. It just says over here, free, including registration, entry, and participation fees. The next part of that, it says, open to the public. It doesn't say free to the public, it says open to the public. Big difference. A couple of years ago, there was an event in the park, something to do with motorcycles. I don't remember exactly what it was. And they tried to charge a fee just to go into that area. It was decided that they can't do that. That's my park as a citizen. Somebody shouldn't be taking a portion of that park and charging a fee. It should be open. I say it should be free to the public. 20 years ago in the city of Tucson, if you're familiar with Kennedy Park, which is on the south side of town, it's a big regional park. It's so big it has a fishing pond, it has many ramadas, it's huge and it's used all the time. And what happened in Tucson is exactly what I'm talking about. A group went, got their permission to have a certain area of the park, they fenced it off, and they started charging a fee, and it exploded. It blew up in their face for the city of Tucson. They found out that people said, that's my park. They can't rent the park to charge a fee. That's a public park. So when you say open to the public, does it mean free to the public, or it's open and they can charge me a fee? Points to ponder. On page 3, on co-sponsorship does not include the following: liability insurance. On page 4, the following conditions apply, blah, blah, blah. Number 4 says adequate special event insurance. I called my insurance agent and he never called me back today because I wanted to know if there was a difference between special event insurance and just liability insurance. When there's a function in the park, the city requires that entity to give a copy of their certificate of insurance. I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe there is a very big difference between special event insurance and liability insurance. If it is special event and it's special, we need to know what the limits are. You know, liability insurance, I think the city requires $2 million. We should know the limits of all the items that are in that certificate of insurance, and I'm sure that's going to be very expensive because typically special event would be something you buy once a year, not like a club that would have a liability policy that they have that would run the entire year. As many of you know, I'm a car guy, and I go to car shows. We just had one a couple of weeks ago. And there's one here that's really interesting. It's number 2 in this on page 4. It says, no flyers, posters, banners, or signage can be placed, posted, or distributed without obtaining appropriate permits. My gosh, that almost sounds like I have to go get a permit to take my car show flyer, and I may have to pay for that permit, and lay that flyer in every car that's at the car show, if they're part of this thing that you're trying to promote here. That's how you advertise a car show. You want to lay a flyer for your car show in on the seat of a car that's already at a car show, because if they're at one, you want them at yours. But this says, in no way can you promote all of these things without obtaining an appropriate permits. If you're going to have appropriate permits, you better define exactly what that is, how you get it, who has to get it, and does another outside entity have to have the permit to do what I'm talking about?
It's interesting.
I think I got one more here. Nope, I marked it. I was talking about security deposits, and I know you'll have that all figured out. There'll be a fee schedule someplace for all these kinds of deposits. Those are just some of the things. I'm from the outside looking in to what's government's trying to make me do to get this waiver. Just as a real quick sidebar, 10 years ago, I went to then Assistant City Manager, and I asked, at that time I was a member of the Sierra Vista Car Club, and I asked that the city waive the fee for one time, 1 year, for the 25th annual Cars in the Park. That was 10 years ago. They just had the 35th this year. I asked for that waiver, and I said, we would like to have the city come on as a sponsor, and all of the other sponsors, you would be treated the same way in our advertising and all of those things. And a week or so later, she gave me an answer. She said, Joe, we can't do that. If we do it for you, we've got to do it for everybody. And my answer was, yes, you should on their 25th anniversary. It's a very simple request. Turned down. I mean, one time, 1 year, for one very special time, an event that had lasted 25 years, there's only 2 in Sierra Vista that have been that long. Well, I don't count the Christmas parade, I guess that's 3. Art in the Park, Cars in the Park, and the Christmas parade. Those are all, I think, now in their 30 or 40-year range. You should treat all of those guys special because they do something that you want here. They bring people to town. They give the citizens of Sierra Vista something to do and participate in that's free. It's a community event. You should promote those and look carefully at those that have 20 or 30 years of experience putting on a function here in town. That's very, very important. It's for the citizens. It's for the kids. It's for the people. If you got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, sir.
I can't disagree with a lot of what Mr. Kraps just presented to us. I've never been a big fan of this proposal to begin with, and I will probably vote against it if it does come up for a vote. I think it's got, as he pointed out, there's just too many caveats. Although you kind of shot yourself in the foot when you're asking for free stuff for other events, though. But other than that, I can't disagree with what you're saying. There's just and it's no reflection on Ms. Wilson. She made an attempt. It was a council request, and that's my feeling about the whole thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I have to agree with Councilman Johnson. Sorry I was late. I was on Zoom, but sorry I was late coming back from a doctor's appointment. I have to agree with Councilman Johnson. I like what you said about honoring those who've been here 25, 30 years. That's different to me, but I think, like I said last time, this opens up a can of worms. I don't think we want to open a lot of debate. So that's what my vote would be too if we brought this to a vote.
Yeah.
I agree with all those points. And I don't think, even though I agree with what Laura said about the secular, there is a secular Christmas, but it's also, there are other federal holidays at that time of year we're not, I don't like the inconsistency, and there's a reason other cities only call them holiday like they avoid all of those words. So if we're not going to support one or the other, and we can't be consistent if we implement this, then I wouldn't vote for it.
Yep. Other questions, comments? And sir, thank you, Mr. Craps. We've been here we have been here for 42 years, 43 years, and we have always had the Christmas parade. At that time, it went down whole fry. Back in the day. So, yeah, I think council's decision probably was to, and thank you, ma'am, for your document. Thank you for looking at this and providing this to the council. I don't think we have a vote on it on Thursday. I don't think so.
No, you wouldn't have a vote. I will say one thing, though, it does fulfill a strategic plan item for us here, without having to do much. But the plan, the thing is, we charge the fees that we charge, and that is a fair system. It's just a matter of how we treat events going forward. If we're going to add events, and which ones are we going to subsidize, and which ones are we not going to subsidize? So,
that was my question about what's going to happen going forward, because I think that this kind of came from the suggestion to do a hummingbird festival. If I remember correctly, that's kind of where this came from, and it's always nice to have something written, like a standard operating procedure or something that provides guidelines. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to interpret things or kind of know where things go. So that's just kind of where I'm like, what happens going forward for future events or for things that are, already going on. I'm just not really sure, like, going forward where this is going.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Landry, we do have a special event process right now. It's very clear. It's laid out. It's online. It answers a lot of the questions that Mr. Craps was bringing up, those issues, the liability insurance, where to get an alcohol permit, what the process is for all of that, and it lays it out. This was an addition to that because there was a large discussion on how we, if we do give fee waivers, and if so, how do we do that? And we typically do not ever give waivers. We do have partnerships, and cities across the country are allowed to partner with other organizations to bring things in. These events that are in here are largely grandfathered from long, long ago. And just as a Thunderbolt or the Firebolt Youth Triathlon, they do pay the fees, but it is also a partnership. They do pay for all of the facility fees for that. And there are other fees associated that other partners do. But if there's something that the city was going to do anyway, and having a partnership would reduce the costs to the city in order to do things like that, those are always good practices, but they're normally sought out and not just a bunch of requests. We do get a lot of requests, and it is a fair system. People pay the fees. My job is to uphold our fee structure and not give waivers. But this is kind of bringing to light just how difficult that is when we're approached, and when all of you are approached as well, because I know you get asked those questions, and we do the best that we can. But I also think it's okay for organizations that are doing fundraisers or things like that, so that they can give all the good things they give to this community, and they can inject that money directly into our youth or special interests or whatever. By paying those fees, that park or that city facility actually becomes their property for a short time and allows them to do that. And so without the government kind of getting in the way of that. So I do think it's a fair system. I appreciate all the comments and the questions, and I'm sorry if I didn't give you what you were looking for, but this is a tough one, very tough. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So we go to item number ECHO. So for Thursday, we only have 3 items on. That's it? Those 3 items. Excellent. So we go to item number ECHO, report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. Mayor Pro Tem.
That's right, you already knew.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, and it wasn't just me. I didn't go alone. Greg drove. So it was
589 miles.
Round trip. And Marta was there. and I was in the middle, in the back seat, just yelling into their ears. And, hey guys, can we stop here? And we went to Yuma last week, and it was for the Arizona Rural Transportation Summit, and this has been used as a launching point for us to share because you know we don't have enough money for roads. We present our projects that we're going to be asking for funding for, and this is in front of senators, House representatives, a bunch of people from ADOT, and
We had
engineers of other
Representative Cinemas, Representative.
right, and federal representatives. So, yeah, we normally do that because you know how it is. You have to kind of keep repeating what you're asking for all throughout session to make sure it gets to the finish line. So we got the funding for the 4 projects this past year. The one in Sierra Vista was Theater Drive, and that's why we were able to pay for the design. It started with this process last year, and this year the Marcom put together this great video. I don't know if it was. I can kind of see Ben's head. Yeah, like I see. Thanks, Ben. You did a great job. And it was perfectly timed because they gave each of us 3 minutes, so it kept me on track. I didn't talk for too long. Okay, the video's wrapping up. I'm wrapping up. And so it was a great visual because a lot of these projects, I can tell you how desperately we need money for roads, but it's very different when you see the road itself and it really showed how well our street maintenance, like how they take the little dollars we have, they've been keeping it together, but we know that's eventually going to fail. So that what we did was that we need a total of $24 million for Buffalo Soldier Trail, and in this round we're asking for $11.1 million from the state to partner with us to pay for 2 sections of the 6 sections, and that was well received. I had it sounds like they're not going to have as much money to spend on one-time appropriations this time around, but they still want to support our projects as much as they can. Not for the whole 24, for Sierra Vista, it would be the 11.1 million for those 2 sections, yeah. Because our total that we asked for the whole region was 19.1, because we also have to ask for Cochise County and Huachuca City.
Okay.
Yeah. Since they partner with us and they're member agencies of the SVMPO. But yeah, it was a busy couple of days, but I think it was successful. We made a lot of them. Most of them that were in attendance, and there were a lot. They serve on the transportation and infrastructures committees.
I think the dying question from the community is, are they going to start on 9092 in November?
Yeah, so, yeah, that's out to bid right now, and that actually, one of the speakers, I asked them about people because we get emails about people, their cars getting damaged, or they claim that their tire popped. You probably get a lot more of these, but we get a few, and so there is a website where on ADOT where you can file a claim if someone tells you that they, something happened and it damaged their car, or or their tire popped. And so it's ADOT, I guess it's ADOT.gov. I don't know the website, but you can Google it. So that's out there. That's a resource. But yeah, hopefully, if they're seeing claims come from Sierra Vista for this section of road, they'll prioritize starting over there. But I know that's up to the contractor. So the bid will close at the end of the month.
Yeah, end of the month.
Yeah.
Excellent.
October 27th is the day.
And also, and I don't like sharing this, but the start date for construction was now, what did they say at the TAC meeting?
February.
End of January, beginning of February. So they know we were none too pleased. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And they all
good.
heard about it when we were there,
Okay.
from all of us.
All right. Any other recent trips, meetings, future meetings? Yes, ma'am?
If there's, next week, on November the 1st, which is a Wednesday, there will be a Transportation Commission meeting. It'll be in the City Hall upstairs conference room, so that room over there at 3:30. So next Wednesday, the 1st, 3:30, if you can make it.
Oh, we have planning and zoning meeting coming up too.
Yes, tomorrow.
Tonight,
Is it tomorrow? No,
tonight.
it's tonight.
There we go.
Surprise. Yes, sir.
I won't be late.
We also have the Environmental Stewardship Commission meeting on Wednesday, the 25th, right up here in the conference room. That's open to the public.
Also, we had the press conference with Sheriff Daniels this afternoon. There are multiple agencies, sheriffs as well as federal, local, DPS, extra personnel that's saturating Cochise County, addressing the low cars, fentanyl, drug crisis, high-speed drivers, high speeders that's taking loads north, be extra vehicles all around Cochise County, main corridors, 92, Bisbee as well as Douglas, the 181, I think, going north. So just be mindful that you will see Coconino County, Yavapai County, just sheriff's vehicles that are not Cochise County, and they're doing a special task force that is sponsored by our Sheriff Daniels and Cochise County Sheriff's Office. If you want to learn more, go online, the Cochise County Sheriff's Facebook page, and it will show you our press release.
Graham County as well.
Graham County,
offered
yeah.
up jail space.
And Graham County offered up jail space since
They couldn't offer to officers.
yes, yeah, since if we're at capacity in Cochise County. But Sheriff did say he has floor space, but they need cots. But so that's happening in our area. The time frame is it starts today, and the sheriff says it'll go until the problem goes away. So he has no time frame. So you'll see other vehicles in town for a long time. Future discussion items, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not tracking anything specific at the moment besides some of your regular items. Since you only have one meeting coming up in November and one coming up in December, you'll have one more executive report, and that's about all on my list for the moment.
Yes, are any comments?
Go D-backs.
Go deep, yes. Game 7 tonight, I think it is.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, okay. So we got.
Man, everything's at
got
5 o'clock.
It's tough for me. Being from Texas and not representing Arizona, it's tough.
All right.
Inner conflict
Last I
here.
heard it.
I think
All
we'll
right.
get over it.
With that, we are adjourned.
You know.